Welcome, my beloved student. How you doing? Hope you all are doing great and lovely. In this video, we are going to see what if DEKU had the paradox quirk. This is part 1, and for more amazing content, leave a like, share, and subscribe. And I want to thank the author of this story named Borrowed Time by Lestat719. So do check out both of them and leave kudos. Let's get in the video. Resources are the most precious thing on the planet. Wars have been waged for that very thing. Resources. Murders, theft, someone has a resource or something you want, they come to try and take it. But there is one resource that can't be fought over. Time. Time is finite yet infinite. People are given a limited amount in an unknown quantity when they are born. They talk of how precious it is and then squander it because they believe there is more tomorrow, even if they don't know if that is true. Time is the one thing people cling to desperately but also toss aside as if it is not worth holding on to. You spend time never earning it. Izuku Midoriya is 4 years old, waiting for his quirk to manifest, wasting his time dreaming of what it could be and how he can be a hero with it. What passes for a friend, Katsuki Bakugo has already manifested his quirk. Explosion. Now, it is just a matter of time for Izuku's quirk. Today, though, will be a tremendous day that he will never forget, moments that may be lost to time for others but not for him. Visiting the quirk doctor, he was picked up in the afternoon to see the quirk doctor because he had headaches and blurred vision. His mother, Inko, drives her son, listening to him ramble about the latest hero debut or some hero activity he saw online. When he teases him, whoever just debuted will challenge his favorite hero, All Might, for the #1 spot. Izuku would roll his eyes and tell her mom that no one could ever do that because All Might is the best of all time. They get checked in as Izuku walks over to the toy area, where another girl is playing with a toy car, running it along the mat. He notices she has bandages on various joints and is missing a hand. When he walks over, she smiles at him and says, "Hello." She has green hair and eyes like him, but hers are dark green, and her teeth are pointy. She was wearing a dinosaur shirt that had a T-Rex with its arms out, and it said, "I like you this much." Izuku thought her shirt was funny. "Hello," he replies, fetching another car from the bucket to play alongside her. "What happened to your hand?" "Oh, it fell off," she says as casually as the sun is in the sky. "Whoa, are you okay?" he says, looking at her concerned. "Yeah, it happens. It is because of my quirk. I can make parts of me float around, but I am not very good at it. So I was showing my friend, floating my hand around, and it fell down the drain, and I lost it," she said. "That would scare me," he said, looking at her. She smiled. "The first time it happened was my foot. I cried for like 2 hours. But then we came and saw the doctor and found out it would grow back. I had to hop around for a while. It was fun. I have to get a shot today to help grow a new hand. I don't like shots, though," she said, scotting her car closer to his. "Why are you here?" "I get headaches and blur my eyes. I think it's my quirk," he said with a grin. "I hope it's a cool one. You seem nice." She smiled, bumping his car with hers. "If you are cool, can you answer this one question?" Izuku nodded. After all, he wanted to be cool. "What is your favorite dinosaur?" he noticed as she asked. She was shaking her shirt at him. "The T-Rex," he said, giggling. "That's right. I knew you were cool. What is your name, cool kid?" she said. "Izuku Midoriya." "What is yours?" he replied, bumping her car with his. "Setsuna Tokage, but I let cool kids call me Set." Before they could continue their little banter, the nurse came out and called Setsuna's name to go back. "Will you put my car away?" Izuku nodded as the girl went to her mother, and they left the waiting room. Izuku played with both cars for a minute before his name was called. He quickly ran over and put the cars away before taking his mother's hand so they could be led back. Inko was directed to the doctor's office, and Izuku was led into a testing room. Inko sat patiently texting her husband, a little irritated at the lack of response. She knew he was home. When the door opened about an hour later, Izuku skipped in, followed shortly by the doctor, who looked like he had seen a ghost. Dr. Tsubasa takes a seat, folding his hands before he speaks. "Mrs. Midoriya, your son has a quirk. His quirk factor is incredibly high for one so young. From all the tests we ran, it seems to be shaping up to be an emitter type. This is the cause of the headaches and blurry vision. Once his quirk manifests, these symptoms should subside. As I read his file, I saw that you have a minor telekinesis quirk, and his father can breathe fire, he said. Izuku smiled as the doctor's mustache twitched. Izuku found the doctor's bushy mustache kind of silly. That is correct, doctor, she said. Is something wrong? Or is there something I should be on the lookout for? Mrs. Midoriya, it was his quirk factor. It tested nearly off the charts. I am unsure what he will manifest, but it will be extremely strong. I recommend that you consider transferring Izuku to a different school with things in place to handle these things should they manifest at school, he said, handing her a pamphlet. Also, the school has faculty that can help teach him how to control it best after it manifests. They specialize in helping kids with quirks that are difficult to control. But he wouldn't know anyone and the cost, she said, looking over the pamphlet. The school looked very nice, but the young lady your son was playing with in the waiting room attends that school, and they offer financial aid and scholarship possibilities. With his quirk factor, he would qualify for immediate enrollment. You should go home and talk it over with your husband, the doctor said. Inko nodded, bowing before she left with Izuku in tow. Home. The journey home had Izuku talking more about his future quirk. He was bouncing at the excitement. He hoped his quirk allowed him to control fire, a mixture of his parents. Inko smiled and told him that whatever his quirk was, she would be proud of him because her son would be next #1. Izuku smiled and started talking about teaming up with All Might and how they could work together. They pulled up to their apartment building. Inko frowned as she still hadn't heard from Hisashi. Walking up the stairs to the apartment, she opened the door. It was eerily quiet. Inko noticed that Hisashi's shoes were not by the door. As she went into the house, she noticed that some pictures were missing from the wall, and sitting on the counter was a manila envelope, his ring, and a letter. Trembling, she walked over to the letter and opened it. Inko, I have fallen in love with another woman. In the envelope are divorce papers. I feel they are rather generous. Tell Izuku whatever you want. I don't want anything to do with him or you. Hisashi. Inko started crying, and Izuku ran over. Mom, are you okay? Did something happen to Dad? Inko quickly squashed her tears. Yes, baby, everything is fine. Your dad got called to America for work suddenly. He will be gone for a while, that's all. Okay, Izuku said. Can I go play in my room? Inko just nodded as Izuku walked down the hall. She called after him. Mommy is going to nap for a little bit. Okay? Izuku nodded and disappeared into his room. Inko stumbled down the hall to her room. She closed and locked the door before collapsing on the bed, crying into her pillow to muffle the sound. The day at the park. The next day, Inko did her best to keep up the mask with Izuku. Fortunately, when he wanted to go to the park, it worked out in her favor as her lawyer was near there so he could review the paperwork. She dropped him off and did her best to smile as he spotted some children from school and ran off excitedly. Izuku spotted Katsuki and ran over to tell him the good news. He wasn't alone, as is usually the case. He was with Tsubasa, a portly boy with red dragon wings, and Iwao, a very skinny boy whose skin stretched to vast levels. When he came running up, he was all smiles. The other boys scowled while Katsuki stood up and placed his hand on his hips like his favorite hero, All Might. Well, DEKU, you find out your quirk? He sneered, or maybe he was smiling. It was hard to tell sometimes with Katsuki. No, Izuku said. He could already hear the snickers from Tsubasa and Iwao. But the doctor said my quirk levels are super high. He said that means my quirk is going to be really strong A and it is an emitter type A and that it's the reason for my headaches and stuff. That's fine, I guess, Katsuki said. Well, you better figure it out fast. He pointed his finger at him. No sidekick of mine better have some lame quirk. Now let's play. The kids immediately broke into a play of heroes and villains. Izuku got cast as a villain, but that was normal, as he didn't have a quirk. The other kids were slightly meaner to him, but they still allowed him to play, and for now that was good enough. After about an hour, he had to take a little break due to a headache. But once that was done, a great expedition was laid out to the forest. Katsuki, in the lead of course, led them into the forest, searching for the lost treasure of All Might. The kids were marching along, having fun, when they came across a small ravine with a river at the bottom. Our intrepid explorers attempted to figure out a way past it when Tsubasa spotted a log forming a bridge. The kids ran over, and it all seemed perfectly fine to them. Tsubasa grinned and flew to the other side. Iwao volunteered to go first. The boy gulped and walked across quickly. He said it was a little slippery. Katsuki puffed out his chest and declared that he was next, and with his stick held high, he marched across. As he was walking and talking some nonsense, he suddenly lost his footing and began to fall. All three boys reached out to try and catch their leader, but that was when it happened. Izuku had visions of Katsuki falling to his death. Now, there was a chance he would injure himself, but death was not likely but to a 4-year-old. No, I am not going to make it, Izuku thought. As he dashed forward, he heard a pop and felt a flood of something ripple throughout his body, starting at his head. He winced from the sensation, and when he opened his eyes, everything was stopped. Nothing was moving. Izuku looked around. Katsuki was frozen, about to fall off the log. A bird overhead wasn't moving. He reached down, picked up a rock, and tossed it. It didn't move once it left his hand. He could move the rock with his hand. This is my quirk. He was about to jump for joy when he realized Katsuki was still falling. Carefully, he walked over and was able to pull and move Katsuki. It was difficult. It seemed that Katsuki still weighed the same, and Izuku was 4, but he pulled him back to the side of the ravine. He was starting to feel cold. Izuku stopped and concentrated on the cold, trying to think about it stopping, but nothing happened. He imagined the cold being pushed out of his body, released, and everything started moving again. As the rock flies, the bird moves, and Katsuki topples over on the grass. Izuku was jumping around like a madman, pumping his fist. In the corner of his eye, a number appeared, 108. Katsuki was lying in the grass. He had lost his footing and was about to fall off the log when suddenly he fell onto the grass, and DEKU was jumping around like an idiot. What the hell? My quirk. It was my quirk. My quirk came in, Izuku yelled. I saved you from falling into the river. I did it. I got my quirk. Izuku, out of breath shivering, collapsed on the grass, smiling like an idiot. Katsuki's eye twitched at DEKU, claiming he saved him. But something had happened. What happened, DEKU? Izuku sat up and started to explain excitedly, but when they got to the actual part about the quirk, Katsuki's eyes got wide. You stopped time, he yelled. Izuku just nodded his head vigorously. No way, Iwao yelled. Once the boys were back on the same side of the river, they demanded that he prove it. Izuku thought hard. Then he snapped his fingers as he had an idea. The rock. He could move it, and when he threw it once time started, it went flying. Okay, look at the ravine. I will stop time and throw a bunch of rocks. When it starts, you are going to see them all fly. The other boys nodded. It took Izuku a moment to trigger it again, and when he did, he jumped around again before remembering what he was supposed to be doing. The cold started building again. He could feel the ache in his bones. He released it once he had thrown about 10 rocks. The boys stood there when rocks suddenly appeared before them and flew into the ravine. Their mouths were all agape as Izuku was standing there smiling, shivering. That is fucking awesome, Katsuki yelled. You will be the best sidekick ever. No, Izuku said smiling. I am going to be the best hero ever. Damn right, Katsuki said, grinning. King Explosion and whatever your name will be. The boys kept experimenting with Izuku's new quirk, but he could only do a few more before he was utterly exhausted and shaking from the cold. The boys touched him and he was almost like ice. They decided that maybe it was best they stopped for now. Smiling and laughing, they emerged from the forest. Izuku was finally part of the group now that he had such a quirk. It wasn't long before Inko returned, putting on her fake smile till she saw Izuku laughing and grinning. When her little man saw her, he almost knocked her off her feet. She could have sworn she blinked, and he was right there. When Izuku saw his mom, He sprang to his feet and wanted nothing more than to get to her. It happened again. But this time, when he started moving, it wasn't cold that he felt but heat. Everything moved so fast that he ran over to her in a second. When he released the heat as he had done with the cold, he was in front of her, sweating slightly. Mom, my Quirk came in. I can stop time, he said, jumping up and down before her. Inko was in shock. What did you say, sweetie? My Quirk. I can stop time. He repeated like that explained everything. Izuku, calm down and start from the beginning, she said, holding her son's gaze. Izuku then told her the story of the log and ravine, how everything happened, and the few tests he did. He told me it happened again when he saw her, but this time he felt hot and moved way faster. Inko hugged him tight. That is wonderful, Izuku. I will call the doctor immediately. Now, let's get something to eat. You must be hungry. Inko wrapped her arm around her son. Truthfully, she was happy. Her son had manifested a powerful quirk, which scared her. If he could stop time. Doctor's office. Dr. Tsubasa was not expecting a call from Mrs. Midoriya the next day, but his eyes lit up when he took the call, and his mustache twitched. Yes, Mrs. Midoriya. Bring him in right away. If what you say is true, then it is imperative that we see him as soon as possible. Yes, see you soon. He sat in the darkened room, his mind swirling with the possibilities and implications of whether this boy could stop time. His master would be so happy. He needed to tell him immediately. He quivered with anticipation. His fingers trembled as he dialed the number. My lord, the most extraordinary thing has fallen into our laps. I can hear the excitement in your voice, doctor. Please share this development with me. Morning visit. Inko had arranged for a visit first thing in the morning. Izuku devoured his food at lunch and ate a second helping at dinner. Mom, can I call Dad and tell him about my quirk? Inko thought about it. What was she going to say? She wanted to tell him the truth but didn't want to ruin his day. Maybe tomorrow. He is asleep right now in America, she said. Her heart broke when he looked crestfallen, and she heard him mutter okay. No practicing with your quirk tonight. We have an appointment with the doctor first thing in the morning. So I want you to rest so you can show them how amazing your quirk is. He immediately perked up. Okay, Mommy. Can we watch All Might Meets Godzilla tonight? That sounds great. Maybe this time Godzilla will win, she said. No way, All Might always wins, he said. As they sat down to watch the movie, the number in the corner of his vision was distracting. He didn't know what it meant. 108. Inko was sitting in the increasingly familiar doctor's office when the doctor entered minus Izuku, causing her panic a little. Is Izuku okay? She asked quickly. Yes, Mrs. Midoriya, he responded calmly. He is just warming up right now, but I will explain. You see, Mrs. Midoriya, your son can indeed stop time. When he does, he begins to get cold. It seems to be what will dictate the amount of time he can keep it stopped. It is tremendous. He can interact with objects and move around freely while time is stopped. He was able to keep it stopped for a whole 5 minutes. We discovered that anything on him is not affected by the time stoppage. He cannot stop time on an object, but that could develop as he practices with his quirk and gets stronger. The other interesting time is that he seems able to accelerate time on himself, giving him super speed. This is much more difficult for him, and this generates heat. Inko nodded, amazed at what the doctor was telling her. Mrs. Midoriya, I believe that your son, with his quirk factor, has the potential to be one of the greatest heroes of the future. What he is going to need is training. I have spoken to the principal of the Mirai Zayden, and he is willing to grant your son a full scholarship to attend. Inko sat back. I would like to tour the campus first and speak with the principal. Of course, I expected as much. He will see you as soon as you are done here. Izuku came into the room soon after, wrapped in a blanket. He smiled at his mom and snuggled in when she hugged him tight. She felt so warm. Mirai Zayden, the campus was beautiful, with perfectly manicured landscaping that gave it an air of sophistication. Security greeted them at the gate, and after she provided her ID, they were allowed entrance. When they came to the front of the main building, they were greeted by a beautiful blonde-haired woman with blue eyes. She bowed, introducing herself as Isuru Erasure. She was the personal secretary for the principal, and she was going to give them a tour as he was finishing up a meeting. "Thank you for seeing us on such short notice," Inko said, bowing. Izuku followed his mother's lead and bowed. "Think nothing of it," she said with a dazzling smile. "You must be Izuku?" "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Now, if you would be so kind as to follow me." She then took them on a tour of the main building, which was toured briefly, as it wasn't until Izuku entered high school that he would find himself here. Inko was surprised as the woman pointed out that the campus had everything from preschool to high school and boasted a 99.8 graduation rate and university admittance. They also had an excellent track record for preparing students to take the entrance exams for the hero schools. She walked them across campus to the preschool where Izuku would be attending should he join them. The building was very nice, and as the kids were at recess, Inko sent Izuku to play while she talked with the teacher. Izuku was looking around at all the kids when he spotted a head of familiar dark green hair. "Set," he called out. He was thrilled when she turned around. He waved at her, frantically running to her. "What are you doing here, cool kid?" she said. "My Quirk came in," he said, vibrating with excitement. "Really? That is super awesome. What is it?" she asked. "I can stop time." "What now, freaking way? That is so cool. That means you could have a recess for like forever," she said, a look of longing in her eyes. "Or art class," he said, his voice full of wonder. "Can you stop time for others?" she said hopefully. "No," he said, feeling like he let her down. "But the doctor says that with practice, maybe one day." "Then that's cool. Are you going to start coming to school here too?" "I think so. I was scared at first, but then I saw you and I wouldn't be alone." He smiled at her as he said it. "That's right. I would be here for you," she said, returning his smile. "Now let's go play. I will introduce you to my friends so when you come here, you will have friends." "Okay." He bounded off after her. Mrs. Erisher led them to the principal's office. When she opened the door, a tall man was behind a large oak desk. The side of his brown hair was white, but he didn't appear to be very old when he stood up. He was over 6 feet tall and strode over to them with a smile. He looked to Mrs. Erisher. "10 minutes, sir," she said, backing out of the room. "Mrs. Midoriya, it is a pleasure to meet you. I am Rito Richado, the principal and founder of this academy." He bowed. "I am so sorry I couldn't greet you when you arrived, but thank you for taking the time to visit us today. And you must be Izuku?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for having us," he said, bowing. Inko was relieved he remembered his manners. "Yes, Mr. Richado, thank you for meeting with us. You must be very busy." "Think nothing of it. I am always busy. But once I heard of this young man, I had to take the time to meet you both. Let me be frank with you, Mrs. Midoriya," he said, gesturing towards a couch for them to sit. Once they did, he sat in a leather armchair. "The world of quirks is fantastic, with many people across the globe possessing many wonderful and amazing quirks. Time manipulation or anything to do with time is extraordinarily rare, with only Sir Night-Eye having a quirk tangentially related to time. The ability to stop time, though, never heard of. Nowhere in the world, to my knowledge. I want Izuku to attend this academy so we can help him become the great person his future holds for him. We can help offer guidance in understanding his quirk and learning what it does and how it works. We can also provide him with a proper education for whatever career he wishes to pursue." "What do you want to do, young man?" "I want to be a hero like All Might," he said proudly. "You can do just that with your quirk and proper guidance," the principal said, beaming. "We have 27 licensed quirk counselors to help in every way possible. He will also be surrounded by some of the best and brightest that Japan has to offer. As you know, I would like to offer him a full scholarship for however long he attends here. He need only maintain a B average. We would also like to offer a transportation allowance and a food stipend." "That sounds amazing, Mr. Richado. But why offer so much for a boy you have never met?" Inko said. "His quirk," the principal replied. "I hope that by him attending here as we watch his quirk grow and help him understand it, it will give us insight into time. Time is something that we know much about and also precious little. It will be a worthwhile investment if we can increase our understanding and knowledge of the subject by even 2%. This could lead us to interstellar travel or even a better understanding of our relationship with time. That is why I am making such a generous offer. What if you learn nothing? Then we learn nothing, but we'll learn nothing if we don't take the opportunity, he said. Please review my proposal. Talk it over with your husband, and let us know if you have any questions. What if he decides to enroll somewhere else after a few years? She inquired. Then he does. The principal shrugged. I cannot fathom any other institute that can match what we offer, Mrs. Midoriya. But if all we have is a few years, then I hope we learn all we can in those few years. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. We will be in touch, she said, rising to her feet. Mrs. Arisher greeted them when they exited. She handed Inko a packet with the offer and walked them to the exit, where she wished them well before returning to Mr. Richado's office. How did it go? Fine. She asked the proper questions, he said, gazing out the window. I am sure she will see reason and enroll him, and if she doesn't, then the doctor will grab him. We cannot allow that to happen. All for One only sees the quirk and whatever narrow-minded uses he can think of for the asinine game he plays. He doesn't see what we can gain from studying him and what he will owe us if we help him fulfill his dreams. Let All for One have the country. I will take the galaxy. Now who is the next meeting with? He said. The Yaoyorozu, she responded, setting a file on his desk. Apparently, their daughter has quite the amazing quirk. It wasn't hard saying goodbye to his classmates. Bakugo teased him about running away because he was so great, but there was no more teasing him about his lack of quirk, though he was tired and cold after school from having to demonstrate his new power. It is hard to convince 4-year-olds that you can stop time. It had been decided that Izuku would start school on Monday, giving him the whole weekend to prepare. Inko had sat down, read the proposal from the school, and even had her lawyer look it over, and she would be a fool to pass up the opportunity. The opportunities that Mirai Zayden offered were what every parent could want for their child, regardless of the field they would pursue. On the divorce paperwork, her lawyer had rejected what Hisase's legal counsel had sent over, and was going to go after the man with the wrath of 1,000 sons. Mr. Kobayashi was also going to help facilitate the sale of the apartment and find a place closer to Izuku's new school, which would also put Inko closer to work. The food stipend would nicely cover the two of them, freeing up some money for a possible rent increase. She was surprised when a lovely apartment near the school came up. After she toured the facility, she discovered it was in place, especially for children attending Mirai Zayden Academy. The price was discounted as long as the student was enrolled in the academy. The amenities offered were excellent, everything from swimming, tennis, workout center, school tutoring, 24-hour concierge, various social events, and even monthly excursions for the children to museums, theaters, and movies for a discounted rate. It was too good for her to pass up. With Hisashi gone and Izuku going to a new school, she had been scared of how all these changes would work out, but it was turning more into a dream. It was a lonely dream as she looked over at the side of the bed he would sleep on when he was home. He hadn't been home much since Izuku was born, but she soothed herself with the knowledge that he was working for their future. He had only been home for a few days before leaving the letter. He had made love to her every night. She just sat there feeling used, angry, lonely. It was just this overload of emotion. And then she had to keep lying to Izuku, who wanted to share the news with his dad. That would have to end. She decided it would be done on Saturday. She would take him out for the day before sitting him down to talk. The truth, Izuku was so excited when his mom asked if he wanted to go to the Hero Museum. A new exhibit about All Might's early years had opened, and he had been dying to go. It was a great day. They went to the museum, he even got a new souvenir, a limited edition All Might poster, and they went out to dinner at Hero's World. He had always wanted to eat there. All the staff would dress up as heroes, and the walls were flooded with all kinds of hero merch. On the way home, his mom took him on a walk around the park before they found their bench and took a seat. Inko looked down at her son, her eyes wet, and smiled before pulling him in tight. Izuku always loved his mom's hugs. They were the best, but this one felt different. He didn't know why. Izuku, baby, you know I love you more than anything, right? Yes, mommy, he said. I want you to know that I will never leave you and that no matter what happens, I will be right here to support you." He just nodded, feeling a little scared as he could tell she was building up to something. "Your dad has decided to leave us and is not returning." "What do you mean? You said he was in America?" His bottom lip quivering. "This is going to be hard for you to understand right now, but your dad and I are getting a divorce. That means we won't be married anymore, but I will still be your mommy. Nothing will change that. Your dad has decided that he doesn't want to be with us anymore. Do you understand?" she asked, keeping her tears at bay. "He gave up?" Izuku asked, a few tears running down his cheeks. "Yes, baby, he gave up on us." She was losing her battle to keep her emotions under control. "Why did he give up? Was it because of me? Did I not get my quirk fast enough? It's strong. Maybe he will return if we call him and tell him. I can be better. Tell me what I need to do. I can do it, I promise." His voice was breaking, tears just running down his face. Inko pulled him tight. "Oh baby, it is not your fault. You didn't do anything. This is all your father's fault. He chose to give up on us. Are you going to give up?" he managed between sobs. "No, baby, I will never give up on you. I will be with you forever, I promise," she said, as her tears could no longer be held back. "It will be you and me forever. Forever and ever." Izuku just cried, clinging to his mom. He wanted to talk to his dad and find out why he would give up on them. A fire began to burn. He would make him regret giving up on them. Izuku would become the top hero in Japan, even better than All Might, and make his father regret giving up on them. Make him watch from wherever he was as his son. No, as Ainkeo's son became a legend right before his eyes. When the two finally were able to separate, he looked to his mom. "I promise that I will never give up on you. I will be the greatest hero ever and make you proud. I promise I will take care of you, Mom. I am going to take care of you. We will take care of each other, baby," she said, kissing his forehead. "And no matter what, it will be you and me against anyone who tries to stop us." It took a little bit before they were ready to head home. She noticed he paused, looking at the door. "You don't like living here anymore, do you?" "No," he said, "but it's okay as long as I have you." He did his best to smile for her, which she warmly returned. "We won't be living here much longer," she said. "I started looking and found a great place close to your school and the hospital. So we are going to sell this place and get a whole new one just for you and me." He brightened at the thought. "Do I need to start packing now?" "No, not yet, but we will soon, I promise. Now get inside and bathe while I hang up your new poster." "Don't hang it up," he said. "I want to wait till we are in the new house." "Whatever you want, my Izuku," she told him fondly. Monday, he was very nervous as they drove up to the academy, his uniform, his All Might backpack, but it took a moment for him to get out of the car. He took Inko's hand as they walked up to the kindergarten entrance. After they were checked in, the duo was directed to the office, where Izuku was given a little ID of his own, placing it in a lanyard secured around his neck. The lovely lady then said, "This is part of your uniform. Every day you have to wear this. This is what they scan for your lunch and everything, okay?" Izuku nodded. Inko knew it was more than that. The lanyard contained a chip that read while the children were on campus, so they could be located at all times. It scanned them in the morning and out at the end of the day. If the sensors picked up someone without a badge, it would immediately set off the warning system. It might have been a bit extreme, but as the academy attracted children from the upper crusts of society and diplomats' children, the extra security was necessary. Not to mention the children with fantastic quirk potential like her son. Parents could even download an app to check where their kids were on campus. Inko noticed that the academy was very technical heavy. Still, it seemed to all be supplemented by a human presence providing any parent this invisible wall of security and peace of mind. They hugged as he went to join his class, and she walked back to her car. She sat there for a few minutes composing herself before heading to the hospital for her shift. Izuku fidgeted as he waited to be called to be introduced. He was surprised and happy that he wasn't the only new student waiting as a little girl with black, slightly spiky hair pulled up in a ponytail and black eyes that looked just as nervous as him. "Is this your first day, too?" he asked. She let loose a small eep before turning to look at him. Why yes, my name is Momo Yayorizu. Pleased to meet you, she said, bowing quickly. I'm Izuku Midoriya, and it is nice to meet you too, he replied, bowing. It's my first day too. Do you want to be friends? You want to be my friend? She asked, seemingly shocked. Aha, he said, nodding his head. That way we won't be lonely at recess or lunchtime. We can sit with each other and play. Do you not want to be my friend? I have never had a friend before, she replied. And I would like to have someone to play with and eat lunch with. Yes, I would very much like to be your friend. The teacher assistant watching this exchange just smiled and did her best not to laugh or giggle. Children had this way of connecting that adults didn't have anymore. It was all so simple for them. You're new, I'm new. Do you want to play? And that was it. When they were called in and introduced to the class with their practice lines, Izuku's smile widened when he saw Set in the back of the course, waving her arms frantically in case he couldn't see her. When Izuku and Momo were directed to their seats, he ended up sitting in front of Set, and Momo took an empty chair to his left next to the windows. As soon as recess was declared, Set, who was about to explode, jumped out of her seat and started asking Izuku questions. When he introduced Set to Momo, the green-haired girl looked at her and raised an eyebrow. Is she cool? Set asked. I am sure she is, he said. Okay, Momo, if you want to be cool, you must answer one question? Momo gulped and nodded nervously. She didn't know what being cool was, but it seemed necessary. What is the best dinosaur ever? Izuku frantically squibbed the word treks on a piece of paper and held it up over Set's head. Momo had already started to answer, I like the Brontosaurus. She paused, seeing the paper Izuku was frantically waving. But the T-Rex is the best? Okay, you're cool. We can be friends, Set said, smiling before she grabbed Momo and Izuku's hands and pulled them out to the play yard. Momo got the introduction to the cool kids as they started up a game of tag, Izuku being it as he was the new kid. While running off to chase the other kids, he noticed a boy with two-toned hair sitting under a tree, looking lonely. Izuku walked over. Hey, do you want to play with us? The boy looked up at Izuku. I can't, he said. I'm not cool. I don't like dinosaurs. The boy seemed so sad. Well, I think that's okay. Do you want to play with us? I do, but Setsuna said I couldn't, he replied. Set and Ko came looking for Izuku as no one was being chased. Izuku, why did you stop? Oh, why are you talking to him? He isn't cool, Set said. But he wants to play and looked sad, Izuku replied. But the dinosaurs? Set whined. Momo walked over and looked at the boy sitting, looking so sad. I'll play with you, Momo said, touching his shoulder. And so will Izuku. He is nice, I promise. Yup, I will play with you, Izuku said. Come on, Set. Fine, he can play, but he isn't one of the cool kids, she said, crossing her arms and looking to the side. Now, what is your name? Not cool kid. Shoto Todoroki, he said, smiling and getting to his feet. But I can make ice? Doesn't that make me cool? Wait, what? Show us. Set demeanor changed. All the other kids gathered around. Shoto concentrated hard and created a ball of ice in his hand, to the oohs and ahs of the kids. It suddenly became a game of showing your quirk and not tag. Momo followed when she lifted her shirt, revealing her tummy. It began to glow, and a Russian nesting doll suddenly popped out. It was when she told them that later, once she learned more, she could make almost anything like shirts or shoes, even a cannon, that everyone perked up. Set, of course, picked up her head off her shoulders like a Dullahan, cackling loudly. Momo's initial scream quickly put an end to it till Set was able to explain her quirk. Izuku was bouncing up and down, almost vibrating with excitement till Momo made the fatal mistake. Izuku, do you have a question? What followed was a torrent of words that strung together at such a rapid pace that almost this wall of speech formed from his mouth and bombarded the three with questions about their quirks. Well, they thought he was asking questions, but none of them were sure. In fact, he talked so much that he fell back and passed out for a moment, making all the kids scream. Once he caught his breath, he sat up like a vampire rising from their crypt. Is that your quirk talking fast? Shoto asked. No, I can stop time, he replied, trying to figure out how he ended up on the floor. Wait, you can stop time? Momo said, "That is amazing. See, I told you Izuku was cool," Set added. "How does it work?" Shoto asked. "I don't know, I just know when I do it, I start to get cold and I have to stop." He followed up with his rock demonstration to the wonder of the kids. Shoto bit his lip before touching Izuku's shoulder, lightly activating his fire quirk. "Wait, you have 2 quirks?" Izuku yelled. All the other kids turned and looked at Shoto in wonder. With a mumbled response in the affirmative and a nod of his head, "I don't like to use the fire part. I only like the ice." "Why?" Izuku asked. "You don't have to say if you don't want to." "My dad pushes me hard. We train every day and I don't like using my fire and it makes him upset. My older brother is also mad at me and I don't know why," he responded, wiping a few tears. "I just want to be the hero that saves people and makes them feel safe." "Then you should do that," Izuku said. "I'm sorry. I want to be a hero too. I want to be a hero that never gives up, that will always fight to save people. I think it would be cool if we could be heroes together." "I would like that." "I want to be a hero too," Momo said, smiling at the 2 boys. "I want to be a great hero and keep everyone safe." "Yo, don't forget about me," Set said. "I am going to be the bestest hero that everyone cheers for when I show up, 'cause I am going to beat the bad guy and save everyone." Soon, the other kids were chiming in with their hero dreams. Shoto looked at Izuku. "Can I be a hero without using his fire?" "I am sure you can, but it would be silly," Izuku responded. "Why only use 1/2 your power? It's your power in the end. I can't tell you how to use it." Momo touched Shoto's shoulder. "It is your quirk. Even if you had the same quirk as your dad, it is still yours." Before they could go any further, the bell rang, signaling the end of recess. As the group all walked back into class, Shoto said, "Does this mean we are friends?" "Yes," everyone responded. "Even if you don't like dinosaurs, you want to be a hero, which is pretty cool," Set said, wiggling her eyebrows. "Get it because of your quirk? You make ice?" The other kids groaned as they crossed the threshold into class. "What? It was funny." Set then proceeded to try and explain her joke, which, as anyone knows, is never good. End of the first day. Momo climbed into her seat in the back of the limo. Her driver, Aoi, closed the door. The little girl sighed. She hoped to talk to her parents later that night to tell them about all the new friends she made. Set waved goodbye to her friends as she headed to the main campus where her mom was a teacher. She skipped there. Today had been such a great day. Now, only if her friends could find their sense of humor. She had laid down some great puns and one-liners today, and none of them got it. Izuku ran when he saw his mom standing by her car, waiting. He barreled into her and immediately started rambling about how great his first day was. Inko, well versed in this, would interrupt key moments, forcing him to take a breath. She was pleased he had made so many friends on his first day. He seemed much happier at the academy, reinforcing that she had made the right decision. Shoto climbed into the back of the limousine. His mother sat opposite as the driver pulled away to the other pickup locations for his siblings. "How was your day, Shoto?" she asked. "You are in a much better mood today." "I made some friends today," he responded. "It was nice to play with them, and we even sat together at lunch. Izuku even shared some cookies with me." "Is that so?" she said, smiling. "Maybe we can invite them over. Wouldn't father be upset?" "Then we will make sure that he isn't home," Ray said, smiling. "How does our perception of time impact its passage? As a child, events like birthdays and Christmas seem so distant, and it takes forever for them to return. However, as adults, time seems to be in short supply, and those important moments keep approaching faster and faster, leaving us questioning how time has slipped away so quickly." Let's talk about the children. The mothers had to talk and get to know each other for 2 weeks before allowing their children to gather at the Todoroki household for a play date and sleepover. Though it may have felt like an eternity for the kids, Inko was surprised at how quickly the day arrived. She was talking to Rei Todoroki, having just dropped over Izuku's overnight bag, making sure Rei had Inko's contact information, which the woman did as that was how this all got set up. Rei displayed patience and a reassuring smile as she assured the concerned mother, Inko, that Izuku would be safe and returned by 7 p.m. the next day. She promised to keep Inko updated and to have Izuku call her. Inko left before the children were released because she had to meet with Kobayashi regarding offers on their old apartment and paperwork for the new place. Hisashi had reached out in anger when his lawyer received the new divorce paperwork. Had he played the sweet, apologetic husband, he may have been able to manipulate Inko. She did still love him. That emotion doesn't disappear overnight, no matter how much we would wish it so. Instead, he became angry, cursing, and saying all the wrong things. Inko was what one would say meekly. Her self-esteem had been slowly dropping since the day she married Hisashi and his disappearance from her life. Then finding out about the affair had not helped the matter. But her anger and the fact that not one word out of his mouth was about Izuku awakened the lioness. Her mind replayed that day on the bench not long ago of her son crying, wondering why Hisashi had given up on him and how he could do better to get him back. Izuku asked her if she would give up and how that broke her heart. Don't you ever call and talk to me that way," she said into the phone, her voice becoming clearer with each word. "You come home, make love to me, then just abandon your son and wife for some other woman and offer this generous settlement. You don't get to dictate terms to me. You no longer get to say how things will be done or handled. Either sign the paperwork, or I will see you in court. Never call me again." She hung up the phone and blocked his number. She didn't leave until she saw Izuku climb into Rei's vehicle. Satisfied, she left. The trip to the playdate. Momo had been inside a limo all her life. Now, had she climbed into a normal vehicle, that would have inspired a sense of wonder and awe. Setsuna and Izuku, on the other hand, were the exact opposite. They were so stunned that their mouths were gapped looking at it all. Momo introduced herself properly and gave Izuku a polite but firm elbow that brought him back to the world to introduce himself, and Setsuna did right after. Shoto was confused by his friend's reactions, but he found it amusing. Shoto found that Izuku, and Momo behaved differently than anticipated, but he enjoyed their company nonetheless. Although he found the other members of their group equally pleasant, he felt a special connection with these three. When he was feeling lonely, Izuku had reached out to him, Momo had eagerly invited him to play, and Set had quickly given in to their requests, making it impossible for him to stay upset with her. Set had this nature about her that would sweep you up and carry you along before you even knew what was happening. Rei had initially said only 2 friends, but Shoto had insisted on all 3, that it had to be all 3 of them. He wondered how his siblings would react to his friends. Izuku, who tended to be nervous, felt uneasy as the Todoroki family entered the car. Natsuo was the first to climb in. He looked ready to say something, but his mother's glare stopped him from speaking. His hair was completely white and he had gray eyes. He introduced himself in a rehearsed and monotone voice, saying, "I hope you all enjoy your time at our home. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." He then sat down and took out his handheld game console. "Is that the Omega Portable 10? Setsuna asked. "Yeah," he responded with a very can't-you-tell tone. "What you are playing?" she said, moving to sit next to him. He rolled his eyes, but Rei's look stopped him from saying anything negative. "Fantasy's End. Alpha Watch 8. I have that one. I am in the last zone. Zola is a pain, but I have to grind up some before I take him on," she said. "There is no way you are on Zola," he responded indigently. "I haven't even gotten past Kree. He is like impossible." Set reached into her bag and pulled out her gaming system, but hers was green and had some dinosaur stickers. Of course, she powered it up and showed him her character. "You are probably using the wrong party. If you switch out the monk for the thief and have the hero dual wield, Kree is a piece of cake." "Why would I dual wield? That skill sucks," Natsuo said in shock, looking at her hero's stats. "'Cause dummy, once you get the skill to level 34, you unlock parry/counter. Then you just go defensive, have the healer keep you full, the thief steals all of Kree's potions, and the trapper redirects aggro to the hero," she said, rolling her eyes. "Does that work?" he said, biting his thumb. "Oh yeah, just grind up the levels and you will see," she said confidently. They were lost in this little world where each one had the most intense looks of concentration on the screens before them. When Fuyumi entered, they both nodded in sync as a greeting, causing Izuku and Momo to giggle. Fuyumi seemed a little nervous as she greeted the rest of the kids. She had a head of white hair and tufts of red scattered throughout. All it took was a simple comment from Momo about how she liked the older girl's hair for them to start talking. Momo asking all kinds of questions excitedly like she was talking to a big sister rather than her friend's sister. As an only child, Momo had wild dreams of older and younger siblings and what that would be like. Last to join them was Tuya. Like his siblings, his hair was white, and he rolled his eyes, taking a seat. A nudging from his mother got him to introduce himself at the very least. After his introduction, he crossed his arms and stared at the window. Izuku felt like somehow he got cheated. Set and Momo had made friends with the other siblings, but Tuya ignored any question that came his way or supplied simple answers. Izuku shrugged and instead focused on Shoto. Soon, the two were whispering about heroes and laughing. They were both talking about the recent debut of Mr. Mysterious and how he resembled other heroes, with Shoto sure that he was Dr. Knight in a new outfit, while Izuku thought it may be Captain Darkness. With all the children in their little worlds, they barely noticed the time it took to get to the Todoroki household. Hey Todoroki, like the limo, the house's luxury did not affect Momo but had a grand effect on Set and Izuku. The two greenettes seemed afraid to move in fear of breaking something that would cost a gazillion yen. After some coaxing from Momo, they soon seemed to forget and settle into the more important thing of playing. After all, they were 4. That was not to say that the night was not without hiccups. A group of 4-year-olds will only agree on everything so many times before someone wants to do something different. Fuyumi, well practiced in interfering in her brother's fights, could defuse things quickly, but other times, Rei stepped in. Soon after some tears, they were back to playing and laughing about whatever had just popped into their minds. Rei smiled, watching the little group drag her other children into whatever game they played. Fuyumi was the first to get pulled in. Not that it required much effort before Natsuo was reluctantly pulled in. The last bastion of resistance was Tuya. He resisted until nighttime before the constant needling of his siblings and the others involved him in a hide-and-seek game. The house was full of laughter and cheer. Rei soaked it all in, drawing it into her soul. This was only possible because her husband was out of the country on a mission, as he would have never allowed this. Their marriage had been arranged for her, but as a dutiful daughter, she did her best to make things work. It was a Quirk marriage, once a widely accepted practice but now heavily frowned upon. Enji Todoroki was at first kind and gentle with her. She began to dream of how their story would play out of an arranged marriage turning into real love. That changed after they were married. He had been gentle enough that first night, but after that it was an obsession with her being pregnant. He tracked her cycle and would insist they perform coitus during those optimal times. It became cynical, cold, distant. Rei tried to make it more intimate, but he would have nothing to do with it. They slept in separate rooms, with him coming to her bed for the act before returning to his study or whatnot. A single message was all she was given when he was on his way. She was expected to make herself ready to receive, and that was that. Divorce or separation was not an option due to the marriage contract. It would destitute her and her family. She was in no position to hire lawyers to help her fight for custody of her children. Her love for them held her there. She loved them dearly and wanted them to live happy lives and chase their dreams. She would almost come to tears thinking they were alone with just their father. Her oldest was the source of much of her worry as Tuya wanted so desperately to gain Enji's favor or, at the minimum, his acknowledgement that he trained his fire relentlessly, even when the evidence began to arise that his fire was hurting him. You see, most fire quirks make the user resistant at the very least to fire or heat. Tuya didn't have this. Instead, he inherited his mother's resistance to cold while he gained an even stronger version of Enji's fire. Enji would train Tuya, but as soon as this flaw was discovered, he wrote Tuya off as a lost cause. Fuyumi and Natsuo had weaker versions of Rei's quirk, which immediately made them not worth his time. Natsuo had expressed a desire to learn, but the dismissal by Enji had made him bitter, and soon, he chose the world of video games. After Natsuo's quirk manifested, Enji stopped coming to Rei's room. In truth, Enji's absence after Natsuo was welcomed. He would rarely come home, and that was fine. Word had reached her ears that he was spending time with a few of his sidekicks. Rei was slightly upset, but as he no longer made demands on her or her body, she was happy to look the other way. She did pray that he would father a few children out of wedlock and name one of them his heir, thus allowing her to break their marriage contract in her favor. With Enji gone, Rei had turned to her only friend, the person she had once dreamed of marrying before the Quirk marriage. It was simply coffee or lunch before it turned to dinner and more. In the arms of her friend-turned-lover, she could find the intimacy that she had dreamed of and wasn't even aware she was craving. Word had reached her ears that he was spending time with a woman who had borne him a daughter and another who had borne him a son. Sadly, it seemed that whatever children he had fathered hadn't been up to snuff because she eventually received the message that she was to be ready. She remembered him coming home, her lover slipping out the window into the night, so she was ready to receive Enji. Rei closed her eyes and let him do his deed before he left. This happened over the next 3 days. She was pregnant like clockwork. He went back to ignoring her till the child was born. When Shoto was born, his hair perfectly blended with hers and Enji's, and his different colored eyes were mesmerizing. She instinctively knew that this was the child Enji was waiting for. She sighed and held her baby close, knowing the misery Enji would inflict upon her little Shoto. But she hoped that if she could show him a better way and a better life, she would do everything she could to ensure that Enji wouldn't be able to break him. Hence, she enrolled him in the academy and was so pleased when he told her about friends. With Enji gone, she wanted to give him an experience that would have otherwise been denied him. She sent her lover a picture of her kids and Shoto's friends on the couch, enraptured by some movie. Woodcutter, you deserve so much better than having to steal moments like this. Rei, I wish I were there to share this with you. Kagaya, I hate having to steal these moments just as much as I hate having to steal them with you. I miss you so much right now. When will you be home? Woodcutter, soon, my love. Soon. IG2G. Miss you. Kagaya, miss you too, be safe. The boys all slept in Shoto's room while the girls slept in Fuyumi's. Rei walked the house, peeking in on all the children and making sure to tuck them in before she went to her room as she lay down to sleep. She felt that if she just had more time, then things could be so much better. Time was always moving forward, never standing still. The next day was more of the same. Still, this time, the kids didn't have to work nearly as hard to wrangle her older boys into their antics, especially when the game turned into heroes, with Rei needing to be rescued from the clutches of Fuyumi and Natsuo, who were hamming up their roles as cartoon bad guys. When she witnessed Izuku disappear before her eyes and suddenly her bonds were undone, and Natsuo was tied up, she knew she had stumbled upon something. Watching Set break apart and Float and Momo create nesting dolls as distractions were amazing. The part that Rei loved the most was when Shoto came over and hugged Izuku, bringing up his fire just a little bit as his friend sat on the ground, his teeth chattering. All the kids wanted to be heroes. Of course they did. They were 4 years old. She could see Tuya wishing to say something as they were talking. She could see the anger towards his father, all the training he put in, only to be dismissed and then ignored when Shoto was born. She knew that Tuya didn't hate his little brother, but he resented him. Enji had no choice but to pay attention to Tuya as he was the only one pursuing heroics. But with Shoto's arrival, warm enough, Shoto asked Izuku. That was great, thanks, Shoto, Izuku said, getting up. Do you have some ice, Quirk, also? Tuya asked, moving closer. No, I stopped time, Izuku said, smiling. But when I do, I start getting cold. The longer time is stopped, the colder I get. So, you couldn't stop time forever? The teen asked. I don't think so, Izuku replied. I wouldn't want to. Being the only one moving would be lonely. But it would be fun to stop it for a long time for extra time in art class. Tuya just nodded and walked away to stand underneath a tree, watching the kids start up some new game with the ball Momo made. Rei walked over to her son and leaned against the other side of the tree. How come he gets everything? Tuya said. Father's attention, little friends to be heroes with. Is having your father's attention all the good? She countered. He doesn't show Shoto affection or spend special time with him. Instead, he drills him as he does you. You mean did? Tuya responded, the bitterness in his voice present. I just wanted to matter to him. But, Tuya, Rei said. Nothing matters to your father besides a stupid fantasy that will mean nothing except to him. What does it say that your father couldn't accomplish his goal and had to hoist it onto his children? Do you want to be a hero, Tuya?
Ido, Mom, Ido.
He said, wiping away a stray tear. Why do you want to be a hero? She pressed. Look at your little brother and his friends. Why do they want to be heroes? Because they are for Mom, he sighed. Everyone wants to be a hero when they get their quirk. Even Natsuo and Fuyumi also wanted to. That is how it all starts, Tuya. Then they grow up and things change, they change, the world changes, or the person they looked up to changes. Or we begin to see them for what they are. Rei said, reaching around the tree and taking her son's hand. If you want to be a hero, then it has to be for your reasons, not your father's, not mine, but your own. You are risking your life. It is your life, Tuya. You want me to quit? He whispered. If you want to quit, then I will support you. If you want to keep going, I will support you. But you need to find a better way, Tuya. You are hurting yourself, trying too hard to be like him and not like yourself. She gently squeezed his hand. I am not hurting, Tuya. I am your mother. Try lying to someone else. She tugged him into a cool embrace. If you want to stick it in the face of your father, then become the #1 hero your way, not his. I love you. Tuya, Fuyumi, Natsuo, and Shoto all love you. Don't let that bastard destroy you or the hero you dreamed about being when you were 4 years old. He won't like any of that, he said, hugging her back. Then we will just have to make sure not to tell him, she whispered. Tuya sat in his room that night, pencil curled between his upper lip and nose, leaning back in his chair. What kind of hero do I want to be? Shoto lay in his bed, drifting off to sleep, a smile on his lips. Today had been an almost perfect day. It just hadn't lasted long enough. He was sad when his friends had to go home, but knowing he would see them again on Monday soothed that ache. Lost in dreams of playtime and heroic adventures, he promised never to let his friends go, and that he would be a hero they could be proud of. Rei sat in her garden, staring at her phone. She had started and deleted the message several times. Kagaya, I want out. The moon is too lonely. I can't let him destroy the children anymore. I want to be with you. Please help me. Woodcutter. I told you all you had to do was ask. Thus began a dangerous game. Rei was going to save her family and herself. Now she just needed the time to pull it off. How do you change how you have done something your whole life? You try to find a better way, or at least a different way. That better way lay in the depths of the internet. A beast that Toya wasn't as adept at taming, but knew someone with the skill he could trust. He turned to Natsuo. Hey, little brother. I need your help, he said from the doorway. Natsuo was stunned. Toya never came to ask him for help. Not that they didn't get along. They didn't get along like that. It was more of a, hey, Dad is making us move this thing, lift the other end. Toya was always training or in his room, while Natsuo was playing games most of the time. He figured it was a lifting and moving kind of thing, so he shrugged and set his game down. Better to get it taken care of before the Oni came home and started his rampage. Fine, he spat out, exasperated. Follow me. Natsuo just nodded and followed his brother. He was expecting to be led to the dojo or any other part of the house, to be honest, not to his brother's room. When he entered, he got slightly nervous when Toya closed the door and played music. He wondered if Toya knew it was him who had eaten his pudding. Sweat beaded on his brow, and he replayed his crime, wondering what evidence he had left. So, what do you need, Toya? He said, trying to sound calm but screaming he was guilty of something. Look, this isn't about the pudding. Natsuo visibly relaxed, then tensed again as his brother knew about pudding. I need your help with something on the internet. I need you to help me find someone, or maybe it is something. Okay, like, are we going illegal here? Natsuo asked, confused but honestly excited. No, nothing illegal. I know you can find things faster than I can. I want to find out if there has ever been another hero out there that gets hurt from using their quirk. His brother said quietly. His name is Ignis, Natsuo said quickly. Toya looked at his brother, shocked. He is either old or dead now, no one knows. However, he wrote a book that is hard to find and is in Italian. I may not like the old man. I may not want to be a hero anymore. But you, my brother Toya, why didn't you say anything? I started to, but you told me to shut up. Natsuo looked his brother in the eyes. I got mad, so I walked away. I'm sorry, Natsuo, but I want to be a hero. I can't/won't do it his way. He doesn't even care anyway. But I want to be a hero. My own hero, despite or in spite of him. Toya looked at Natsuo directly, pausing for a second. If you want to be a hero, you should do it your way. But my quirk isn't that strong, he protested, looking down. And I have no one to help me. I will help you, Toya said, crossing the distance between them and placing his hand on his shoulder. We need to do what we want and how we want. We won't be in his house forever, and I don't want to live in his shadow. What if he gets mad? Natsuo said quietly, reluctantly. Then he will just have to make sure not to tell him, Toya said, hugging his brother. Natsuo stiffened briefly before returning his brother's hug. A gulf had developed between them, a slow widening chasm. It was closed in this moment. They held each other for a moment, each fighting back a few tears. Kagaya and the woodcutter, are you sure about this? The woodcutter said, her hand slipping below the coat rack to take Kagaya's. I am, she whispered. I can no longer sit back and let him destroy my children. That is what he is doing. His actions will push them to a place I don't think I can bring them back from. Shoto's little friends managed to do more for him in the short time they have known him than that man has ever done. I love you. Once we start, there is no stopping. I don't want to stop. I want to be free. I want them to be free. She squeezed her lover's hand. I love you too. I had to walk away once. I must hide you now. I don't want that. I want to sleep in your arms and wake the same way. With all that I am and will ever be, I am yours. The woodcutter whispered back. I have to get to work. They will notice if I am gone too long. Then go, but hurry back to me once you are able. I await your return. Kagaya said. They squeezed hands as the woodcutter left the store. Inko walked out in a daze. She had just received a promotion. She had put in for it a while ago, but it had been so long that she thought the position had been filled. A set schedule and pay increase had been a long shot, but she stepped into a nearby restroom to cry some tears of joy. The ringing of her phone forced her quick composure. This is Inko, she said, still pulling her emotions together. Hello, Ms. Midoriya. This is Alexander Rilan from the Atarashi High Condos. The voice said. Hello, Rilan-san. How can I help you? She said, her heart pounding again. Your bid has been accepted for the apartment. You are welcome to come down at your earliest convenience to sign the paperwork and pick up your keys, Rilan-san said, his voice sounding chipper. That is wonderful. I will be by tomorrow at, say, 8:15? Inko was doing her best to keep the excitement out of her voice. We will see you then. The line went dead. Inko danced a little joyfully. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself, but couldn't stop grinning. Now, she just needed to sell the old apartment, and that phone call came later. Mirai Zayden Academy. Everything is moving as ordered, sir? Isuru said, looking up from her tablet. The promotion, the approval of the new apartment, and the sale of the old one. According to the reports, she is rather happy. We do not interfere with the divorce proceedings as first thought. Her lawyer is rather capable, disturbingly so. His name, Rito said, not gazing off the courtyard below where students were eating lunch. Kobayashi. Look into him. His name doesn't sound familiar, Rito said. Is she suspicious at all? It doesn't seem so. We should let things progress naturally to avoid raising any suspicions. Her son has made several friends as he was already acquainted with Mrs. Tokai's daughter. He also has befriended Ms. Yayarozu and the youngest Todoroki, pulling them into the circle. She looked at her tablet. I would recommend at this moment that we keep them together, as separating them may be adverse to the development we seek. The doctor, being kept at bay, he no doubt isn't fooled by our covert actions. It doesn't matter. We can't have another failure like Shigaraki, he said. And if he insists? she said, holding the tablet behind her. Then we remind them that this is a mutually beneficial relationship, and we can end our part anytime we choose. If he needs a demonstration, send the signal to disrupt their network for a few minutes. We should begin to mobilize our forces for a rapid response. All for One is likely going to throw a temper tantrum. He looked down at the students again. Make sure he understands that I do not suffer fools. Yes, sir. Time. Everything has a cost. Nothing is free. That cost beyond anything monetary or physical is time. Time is part of the cost for all things in the world. You spend it constantly, even when you don't consciously think about it. The Midoriyas, Inko and Izuku were all smiles as they packed their apartment. Izuku was happy that some of his mom's co-workers surprised her by showing up to help them pack. He was glad to be leaving this place, to move on from everything that reminded him of that man. Inko was surprised when Izuku told her he wanted to get rid of some of his All Might toys, but she soon realized that they were presents Hisashi had sent or given him, the ones her son was confident his mother had gotten him cut. The man was too scared and had given up on him and his mom. He wasn't strong enough, but Izuku was going to show him. This may have been a problem for others' way of thinking, but Izuku never considered it physical strength as Bakugo did. It was the will to keep trying and pushing forward. His dad didn't have that will. Izuku would make sure that he never let those he cared about down. He would never give up on them or leave them behind. The movers came the next day to gather all the stuff being taken to their new home. Inko and Izuku stood in the doorway staring at the near-empty apartment, his arm around her waist and hers around his shoulders. He looked up at the sound of his mom sniffling. "Mommy, you okay?" he said worriedly. "I am, sweetie. One day, when you are older, you will understand. I am happy about our new beginning, but this isn't how I ever imagined leaving this place." She hugged him tight to her side. "But it is you and me, kiddo, until you get married. Then you have to give me many grandbabies to care for." "Ew," Izuku said, sticking out his tongue. "That's gross." "We will see, my little hero," she teased as they left the door closing behind them. Inko stopped at the building manager's office, who was sad to see the family go but happy for the good fortune that seemed to be coming their way. "The Yaoyorozu," Momo looked at her mother quizzically. "Are you saying I can have them over for a sleepover? And swimming?" "Yes, dear, why must it be one or the other? You can invite the parents as well. We would love to meet them, wouldn't we, dear?" her mother said, to the silence of her husband looking over a data tablet. She gently nudged him with her elbow. "What? Oh yes, it would be lovely indeed," he said quickly. "Daddy, what did Mommy even ask you?" Momo said, giggling behind her hand. "A great and lovely idea that your mom talked to me about, and I completely agree with it," he said, very sure of himself. "He doesn't know, does he?" Momo said to her mom. "Of course he does, dear. He knows that I told him, and that is all that matters." Her mother smiled. "Daddy knows that Mommy is right." Momo nodded, still giggling. Momo's eyes went wide. She smiled broadly. "I have to make invitations." She ran to the craft room. Once Momo was out of earshot, "What did I agree to?" her father asked. "We are going to host a little party for Momo's friends," her mother said. "I believe that getting a chance to meet with Rei Todoroki is worth it. And besides, did you see how excited Momo was? The Tokai's. Okay, we are going to be the super mighty elemental super lizards," Set said to herself, a large piece of construction paper on the floor before her. "I will have to be in charge 'cause I am the best." "You're the best," her sister Hannah laughed as she looked at her phone. "Yeah, I got everyone together well except for Momo and Shoto. That was Izuku, but everyone loves me, and if we are going to be named after lizards, then I get to be in charge," Set said, not missing a beat. "What if they don't want to be on a team with you?" her sister teased. Set just looked at her sister like she had sprouted two heads or had said the dumbest thing ever. "Are you okay? Does Mom need to take you to the doctor?" "I'm just fine." "No, you must be running a fever. Or maybe you finally went crazy because you were talking crazy," Set yelled. "Maybe one of your little friends would rather follow someone else who isn't always losing their limbs." Hannah stood up. "Because you know not everyone likes dinosaurs or lizards." You take that back. The T-Rex sucks, Hannah said slowly and deliberately. What erupted from Set was either an epic war scream or a little girl yelling at her sister. It would depend on who you asked. Set ran at her sister, knocking her back onto the couch. What then proceeded was an epic battle with Hannah running around with Set's arm, locking it in a closet, and Set stealing Hannah's phone. Kicking and biting may have been employed by both combatants. Their father found them yelling and crying at each other. In the end, everything was returned. The honor of the T-Rex was restored, and both girls sniffled, hugging their dad. When their mother walked in, she smiled and went to the kitchen to start the family dinner. "What did the doctor say today, Daddy?" Set said as she tried to see if she could physically merge her cells with her dad. "They said everything is still the same, that I just need to keep up on my medication." He squeezed his girls to him. "Your dad is not going anywhere yet. Not till you both get married and name your first grandchildren after me." "Okay," Hannah said. "Ew." Set squirmed. "Well, I am never going to get married or have kids, so you have to live forever." Set stopped and paused. "Unless I can hatch them, then maybe." Her father's warm laughter filled the room. "We will see, my little lizardy. We will see." Endeavor, he sat in his office, focused more on the world outside the windows than the paperwork on his desk. It was all right there. He could fulfill his dream with Shoto, a hero that would surpass All Might. His son would dethrone the #1 hero. He just had to deal with Rei's interference. She kept telling him that he was driving Shoto hard and that he needed to be allowed to be a child. He had allowed her to enroll him in that school with the other children to soothe her. It didn't seem to have an adverse effect, so that he could allow it now. Though a shift to private tutors to allow for more training would be better, he would do that soon. Standing up, he grabbed a file from his drawer and looked out the city. Rei needed to be distracted. Maybe he should give her another child to do just that. The woodcutter stepped onto the street and quickly headed to the left. It wasn't long till a black sedan pulled up. The back door opened, and they quickly stepped in. "Where to, miss?" the driver said. "Back to the office," the woodcutter responded as she raised the partition and activated an anti-surveillance device. She pulled out a phone. It was a very old model. To anyone outside, it would have been shocking that I worked. She was staring at it momentarily before taking a deep breath. Hesitantly, she scrolled through the contacts, her eyes settling on one name. She closed her eyes as she hit send. "What a surprise, my dear," a chipper voice rang out on the other side. "To what do I owe the honor?" "I am willing to roll over," the woodcutter said. "And the price?" "I want the moon," she said. I must expose Enji Todoroki, his affairs and misdeeds. I need to bring him Loso, so I can have the moon." "I believe I can help with that," the voice responded. "You know my price? You give me this, and I will give you what you want." A mole inside the Hero Commission. The woodcutters responded. "Excellent. I will be in touch, Lady Nagant." The line went dead. Kana Tsutsumi leaned back into her seat. She closed her eyes as the world passed by, as time rolled ever forward. She was about to play a very dangerous game. The Hero Commission would not take kindly to her spying on them. But Kana was willing to play this game for Rei. She was ready to risk everything. After all, she had killed for less. Now, if she had to, she would kill for Rei. Endeavor was, for a lack of a better word, upset. He had told Rei to prepare herself, and she had responded with no. He stormed into the house, barreling past his children, who wisely kept quiet upon seeing the look on his face. They were surprised to see their father in such an apparent state of anger, and to see him in the early afternoon. He found his wife sitting in the garden, drinking tea. He stormed out a furious ball of rage and slammed his fist on the little table, nearly breaking the thing in half. "Is something vexing you, my husband?" Rei responded as if he was nothing more than a gentle summer breeze. "I told you to prepare yourself for me," he seethed. "And you dare to tell me no?" "That is correct," she replied, sipping her tea. "Would you care to explain yourself?" Her casual tone with him was doing nothing more than fueling his anger and fire. "If you insist." She gestured with her hand as if trying to think of the words. I am not in the mood nor wish to bear another child right now. I don't remember asking. That is correct. You didn't ask? Ray replied, hints of anger dancing in her voice. You never asked, to be exact. And this time, my answer would still be no even if you had asked. You dare to disrespect me in my house. He slammed his fist again, breaking the table, his voice on par with a roar. You are my wife, and you will obey me. I will do nothing of the sort. She rose from her chair and faced him. I am your wife, not your slave, and not your broodmare. If I ever desire to have children again, I will bring the subject to you then. Until then, do you not have an agency to run? I have to prepare dinner for the children. Ray went to walk past him, but he reached out and snagged her arm. When I return home tonight, you will make yourself ready for me. You are hurting my arm, she replied as his fire flared. So suddenly did her ice, making him release her arm as frost overtook his hand. I will not, and if should you feel otherwise, you will find a cold reception waiting for you. She looked down towards his crotch. And your member. She walked back into the house. He exploded in rage, scorching the garden before storming out. Once he was in his car, he was seething. He needed some release. Hello, it is me. Are you available? Good, I will be there soon.
Gathers nomos.
Quirks are amazing. According to some, they would be called bullshit. Livewire was in the latter category, depending on who you asked. Aside from being a brilliant hacker, his quirk allowed him to shape change into almost any object. A chair, a seat, a wallet, a woman's purse. He was a cold, ruthless killer and one of the best assassins on the planet. He had morals in his way, a set of rules he lived by. He had been in the game so long that he could decide who he worked for and when. No one even alive knew what he looked like. He had infiltrated Endeavor's agency. He was on the man's wrist. Endeavor was a piece of work, but he wasn't dumb. Livewire had to give him that. He didn't keep his essential files on the servers at work. Most of them were not even digital. The main problem is that Endeavor didn't throw away files and clean up after himself like he should. Reading his files on all the women he investigated for a Quirk marriage and the reports had been, shall we say, not fun. But it was through these files he kept that Livewire found Mistress Number 1. Her name was Frost. A tiny-time hero but a fantastic figure. Her hero career was cut short when she overexerted her quirk while keeping a building from collapsing, which required 5-point contact, and lost part of a few fingers. Now, more contact, no more quirk, no more heroics. Endeavor came in like a man who cared, thanking her for her noble sacrifice and helping to make sure she was okay after such a traumatic ordeal. Frost fell for him hard, and he used that, stringing her along, using her to the tune of 2 children. When the first didn't produce a fire quirk, Endeavor managed to play it off. After all, there was still the second, and that one didn't either. The second one absorbed heat when her quirk manifested in nearly killing another child. To her small credit, Frost knew what was happening was wrong, but he spun the tale of a loveless marriage that he would soon leave her. Of course, she believed him. She was in love with him. He had come in when she was the most vulnerable and taken her off her feet. Mistress Number 2 was a whole different sort. That was who he was on his way to see at this very moment. This poor thing had crossed his internship path. The stars in her eyes were for him. She worshipped him, the ground he walked on. His words were her gospel. He used and degraded her to his delight, and all she would do was ask for more. He had allowed her to bear him a child only to ensure her loyalty, and it had done just that. The little boy had a fire quirk. He couldn't create fire but bend and shape it. To her, he was too fantastic to have one woman. He should have all he desired and craved. Whether it be her sister or anyone else, he would bring by. He was a king, and one day she would be his queen. Then there were the accidents that had to be cleaned up. Endeavor was mighty, and for all his faults, he did train somewhat hard to keep his fire from causing collateral damage. But it did happen. He would pay to make it go away, well, him and the Hero Commission. He was so obsessed with his ranking that he would pay people off to keep it out of the public, and Hero Commission would sweep it under the rug. The tighter and the more obsessed you become with something, the more your rational thought fails you in what you are doing. It was akin to trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The pool party. Inko had been stunned when little Momo approached her after school and handed her an invitation to a pool party and sleepover for Izuku at her house. She could tell the charming little girl was both excited and nervous. The homemade invitation put it all over the edge. She wanted to swoop the little girl into her arms and hug her tight, but she knew that it would be highly inappropriate for her to do so. Of course, she RSVP right then and there. On the day of the event, Inko seriously reconsidered her decision as she drove up to the Yaoyorozu estate mansion. Inko wondered what she was honestly expecting. She saw little Momo climb in and out of a limo every day. It was the cutest thing in the morning. She would climb out immediately but adequately look around for her friends. When she saw them run some before remembering that she was supposed to be a lady and walking to join them, she was very fast but walking nonetheless. Inko could already tell that she would be a beautiful young woman. Once through the gate, they pulled up to the house, Inko taking a moment to check herself in the mirror. She could have been in her best clothing and still would have felt underdressed. The children were to have their swim party while the adults visited. Make connections, she guessed. She didn't know how much she could make a connection with the Yaoyorozu or the Todoroki. She was just the head nurse, but she thought she would make some small talk for a bit before going to watch over the children. As they approached, another car pulled up, nice but not too nice. So Inko breathed a sigh of relief when little Set stepped out of the car, grabbed her bag, and raced to Izuku. Set froze, and the largest smile broke out when Izuku revealed a new t-shirt. It had a T-Rex with the little dino head grabber claws in its hands, and the caption read, "Now I am unstoppable, I love it," she yelled, hugging her friend. "Let's go dino buddies." She pulled him to the door. Inko smiled, turning to Set's mother. The woman had surprisingly large, upturned, dusky black eyes, long lower eyelashes, and a charming smile. "Set, don't run," she said before bowing to Inko. "Ichika Tokeage, Izuku Midoriya, but please call me Inko," she said, returning the woman's bow. "Then please call me Ichika. Set tells me so much about your little boy." The woman leaned in. "If they were older, I would say she is quite smitten." Inko giggled a little. "I agree with how he talks about her. He talks about all his little friends, but your daughter, Momo, and Shoto are his focal points. I have noticed that also." Ichika and Inko began to walk towards the house following their children. "This place is so huge. I feel drastically underdressed." "As do I," Inko added. The two women laughed as they were escorted in. Much like Inko, Rei couldn't resist when Momo gave her the invitation. She had given her 3. One for Shoto, one for Fuyumi, and another for her and the boys. It was just this precious moment watching Momo doing her best not to be nervous. But of course, Rei could tell that little girl was nervous being a mother herself. She informed Enji that she was taking the children to go swimming. He began to protest, but he quickly stopped when she told him that it was at Yaoyorozu estate and that she would talk with the lady of the house while the children frolicked in the pool. The verbal wordplay between the two ladies was quickly dismantled by Inko and Ichika as the two women, while maintaining polite conversation, treated the two women like other mothers. Rei, who had more dealings with Inko, was the first to slip, but when it happened, a shy Yaoyorozu smiled and did her best to fall into the conversation. Rei shared a secret smile with Ashai. Today was not about gaining anything other than allowing their children to play together. It was time for the children to be children. The family talk was the best topic. This way, they found out that Set's father was sick. Ichika put on a face of optimism, but Rei and Ashai knew what lay behind that face. Set and her sister Hannah knew he was ill, but like their mother, they remained optimistic for the future. Hannah was coming to the realization sooner as she was older, but Set being so young still, once a glass of wine was in hand, the conversation became easier and began to flow. Each woman had a different relationship with their husband. Rei kept it diplomatic, saying that Enji was always working, and being the number 2 hero in Japan kept him away a lot. Rei did slip in some subtle words that maybe things weren't perfect. Ashai's husband, Goro, was a workaholic. He was a good husband, but a multinational conglomerate took a lot of time and attention to run. Ichika was watching her husband slowly die, and Inko was divorced or in the process of divorce. The children were having the time of their lives, with Momo doing her best to be a good little host before the fun of a party took over, and she did what all the kids did, and that was playing. Eventually, the mother made their way to a balcony overlooking the controlled chaos down below, and it was in that they all found some peace in watching their children be just that. Ever think of having another? Ray asked Ashai. There are times. Ashai looked at her daughter, chasing Fuyumi around the pool with a look of sheer delight on her face. I know that Momo would love to have a baby sibling. It is something that we have discussed, but no firm answer has been decided on. I don't think I will have any more. 4 is more than enough. Ray looked over the railing, a smile broadening on her face as Natsuo, Shoto, and Izuku all teamed up to knock Toya into the pool. Of course, her eldest made sure to pull in his siblings, leaving Izuku celebrating in triumph, only for Set to come up and knock him in while he was distracted. It then became a game that would be the last one dry, which no one won as Fuyumi pulled in Momo when they had knocked in Set. Needless to say, the betrayal that day came swift and furious as various pool games were played. The children sat happily with their parents and ate lunch before having a ping-pong tournament, with Fuyumi taking the victory before they returned to the pool. Ashai, after dinner, Ray, Inko, and Ichika took their leave, thanking Ashai, who was trying to get the ladies to spend the night, but other duties called. Ashai stood happily in the doorway, looking at all the sleeping children who hadn't even made it halfway through the movie before falling asleep. She couldn't remember seeing her little Momo smile so much in one day. The laughter echoing off the walls just brought the house to life. Ashai sent a simple message to Goro, "I want more children." She saw the 3 dots appear and disappear several times. Ashai sent him videos of Momo and the joy she had today. Goro, I will take some time off next month but will be home next Tuesday. We can talk then. Asai, I love you. You know that, right? Asichai. I do, my love. I have never doubted that or your love for me or Momo. I know what you do is essential, but Momo misses you. You won't get this time back. Soon, she will be running off to some hero course, and the next you know, you will meet her fiancé as she gets ready to marry. Goro, you are right. I have a responsibility to the company, but I also have a responsibility to my family. Let us talk more when I see you. Shai. Sounds good. I love you, Goro. Ashai had made her way to bed and had just begun to settle under the blankets when her phone chimed again. Goro, so what are you wearing? Ashai blushed and stuttered aloud before taking a deep breath and responding, your favorite black pajamas. I may have forgotten my undergarments tonight. Ichika, she returned to the familiar and warm sight of her husband sitting on the couch, reading a book. How was your day? He asked, not looking up. She knew he was getting to the end of a paragraph before stopping. She went to the kitchen to make them some tea but stopped and brought back a bottle of wine instead. It was much fun. Set had a blast. Hannah? She said from the kitchen, hopeful. Good. She is staying the night at Zana's. She undid a few buttons on the top of her shirt. Taking a deep breath, she walked back to the living, doing her best to put a little wiggle in her walk. Are you tired? No, I am feeling good today. He set his book down and froze, seeing his wife standing, looking so very sexy. Then why don't you join me in the bedroom? We can talk. She turned and walked down the hall. She couldn't see the grin on his face as he scrambled to get up and follow her down the hall. Inko walked into the empty apartment. It felt cold with Izuku not home but much more like home than their previous place. She made herself a large cup of tea and went to her office. Powering up her computer, she smiled as she logged into her chat room and saw the name she had hoped to see.
Rip van Winkle.
Persephone. Do you ever sleep? Rip Van Winkle. Sometimes my job has me going at all hours, mostly at night, and I need help to get enough sleep. But that tea you recommended with a little bit of honey worked wonders. Persephone. I love it. It helps me so much when I get home late from a work shift and need to relax. Rip Van Winkle. That is right, you got a promotion recently. How is that? Persephone. Great. It was so unexpected. But it is going well. The extra money and the more stable hours are excellent. I was happy to see you online. Rip Van Winkle, I have to admit I thought that I would hear from you tonight, as you said you had plans. Persephone. My plans are all wrapped up, So you have me for a few hours at least? So did you sit down and talk with your friend?
Rip van Winkel.
Persephone? R.I.P. You need to talk to him. He probably doesn't know that he made you upset. If you don't tell him, you can ruin what you said was your oldest friend. Rip Van Winkle. I will talk to him tomorrow. Persephone. Promise? Rip Van Winkle. I promise. Let me message you back. I have to handle something. Persephone. Okay. Be safe. Rip Van Winkle. I will.
Rip van Winkel.
He set his phone in his pocket and brought the binoculars up. There you are, scumbag. Rip smiled, hiding it behind his trademark scarf. I was wondering when you would show up. You are not getting away tonight.
Kureji.
Netsu Oba lay in bed next to the most extraordinary person on the planet. Thankful it was a large bed as her king had a voracious appetite tonight. She had been forced to sit and watch as these lesser women serviced and pleasured her king. His seed dripping out of their lesser sexes. She had been allowed to consume it so it did not fall to the floor. For hours, she waited until the hunger in her eyes and her heart reached her king, and he called her to the bed. Legends should be made of how he would make love to her. How he used her body was nothing short of magical and nothing short of ecstasy. This other woman didn't understand the king's need, how he needed to vent his frustration and the world's cruelty. Her body could satisfy his needs. Her quirk gave her a minor form of regeneration. He could let go with her. She was the only one who understood and could do this for her king. How dare this pretender, this false queen, deny her king another heir? Women should be lining up for the glory and honor of bearing the king a child. She waited with an ache for the day she would again be allowed the honor. Her child was nothing perfect, and she would make sure to give him all the best that he was entitled to by birthright. But the false queen had gone too far. Netsu tolerated her existence as she had given the king a worthy heir at long last. But now she was doing it to anger and defy him. If her king ordered her to service him in a crowded restaurant, Netsu would, as should any woman. Her king had said he had grown weary of the false queen and tired of how she looked at him, not with awe and reverence but with hatred and disdain. How the queen would never come to his chambers. How nightly she would not only not service the king but now did not comply when the king had ordered it. Netsu reached over and took the king's phone. Unlocking it with his print, she looked at his schedule. Next month, he would have to go away on a mission. He would be out of town, which would be perfect. Netsu was going to remove the queen and the unworthy heirs. Then only the worthy would be left, and she could become his queen, give him respect, and serve him how he should be. Yes, it would be perfect. Long live the queen. That's it for today, guys. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, consider leaving a like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the author of the story. All details in description. Thanks for watching. Take care.